Hello everybody, this is going to be a not live stream, and I thought as I'm coming up to 3,000 subscribers, which for me is a big milestone, I would make a different video for a change. So the not live stream is effectively similar to a live stream, apart from the fact that it's not being shown live. So I thought if I showed it live, I'd probably get 1 or 2 viewers and it would be quite humiliating. So I'm going to record it and then you can watch it if you want, and if you don't want to, then you don't have to. So what are we going to be on about? Let's so while we're on the subject of YouTube, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm quite nosy and I think what are other people interested in? So let's have a look at my YouTube history. It's almost like looking into somebody else's secret diary, isn't it? Apologies for the lighting, by the way. I'm recording this at night and I'm too poor or too mean to buy good lighting, so I might actually turn the camera off. In fact, I think I will, because you don't really need to see. You know what I look like. So let's turn off the camera. That's better. And yeah, let's look at what I've got on my YouTube history. Got some pop music. Pop music is what boomers call it, isn't it? So yeah, we got some music. Churches, I quite like them. What Bitcoin did. Even if you're not interested in Bitcoin and you think, oh, here he goes again, he's banging on about Bitcoin. A lot of the people who go on these interviews are actually just interesting people, and they've got, let's just say they've got different views to the mainstream, so that's always interesting. What Bitcoin did. Peter McCormack from Bedford, and he travels to America and interviews interesting people. And this. So if anybody knows CodeMonkey King, if anybody's been watching web scraping videos in the past or chess programming and they've seen his new channel, look at that, 329 views in 2 days. This is impressive. So I don't know if you recognize the person on the right in the sunglasses. With the CodeMonkey King has been, I think I've slightly inspired him to learn English rather than American English. So yeah, check that out. American versus British accent, funny, played by the Ukrainian, and it is very funny. It's quite sweary, so not for the faint-hearted. So check out Maxim's. Real Python. Real Python actually do, I would say, the most comprehensive tutorials, especially on their website. I did a couple recently, and Michael Herman, who does testdriven.io, he did a really good one, which enabled me to get Stripe payment up and running with Python and Django. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Django. I don't. It's a enormous framework, and I understand why it's useful, but just for me personally, it's not my cup of tea. But he did a really good tutorial, and I got it up and running within maybe 3 or 4 hours from scratch with no knowledge. So yeah, Real Python I like. Jimi Hendrix, I don't know why that's there. Nothing against that. Generative art, particles in Touch Designer. Problem is with a lot of these new AI art things is you have to buy credits and it costs you money. So the whole point of Python, and I like open source because it's free. I know the millions of hours that have gone into all of this software, and I'm not disputing that, but I don't want to spend money on software. That's just my personal bias. Aeroplanes. I quite like watching aeroplanes in plane. You see there, they're just landing into Los Angeles at night. That's quite spectacular, isn't it? Pilots are amazing. Just the amount of stuff they know. I'll get on to that again in a minute. Yeah, this geezer, he's not really. I don't know about him. If you've ever seen his videos at MIT, he talks a good game, but Mr. Gensler. Anyway, I don't want to look at him. Churches, yeah, good band. Monkey and Minnow, Nina Conti. So check out Nina Conti. Funniest. I love ventriloquists. I think, look at that, the cat attacking the ventriloquist monkey. Amazing. Band from the 90s I used to like. Uncle Bob. If you've watched any programming videos, I'm sure you get Uncle Bob's suggestions. Lex Fridman, he does some interesting interviews sometimes. Especially the Michael Saylor one, that's about 3 hours. That's 3 hours long as well. Wow. Can you imagine doing a 3-hour interview? Anton Antonopoulos. I'll get onto him in a minute. Really good teacher about the technical side of Bitcoin, not kind of the philosophical or political, which I'm starting to get bored of, but the technical side of Bitcoin, I think whether you ever want to buy Bitcoin or not, that's up to you, but the technical side of Bitcoin is fascinating, and whether you want to learn Python, C, what else does it use? G4, Stack. So it's written, the Bitcoin core was written in C++, but you can do lots of cool stuff with Python, interrogating the blockchain, and as you've seen in my recent videos, creating private keys, public keys, signatures, and all that. Django, Pytest, yeah. The absolute car crash of a prime minister that lasted 40. Basically, Lettuce lasted longer than she did. Absolute nightmare. I don't want to get deplatformed, otherwise I could say a lot more about the ruling party in the UK, but I won't. Ben Howard, one of my favourite musicians, does some different tunings. Anybody who plays guitar, Ben Howard uses what's called the DADGAD tuning, which is D-A-D-G-A-D. Normally a guitar is tuned as E-A... Oh wow, I've forgotten. E-A-D-G-B-E? Yeah. Dicey plane landings. I like seeing a few. Oh, that was a simulator. You do see some real life ones as well. Zurich webcam. I like looking at webcams around the world. Yeah, anyway, Ben Eater. If you're interested, if you've ever used a computer, then you will. There's something for everybody. Ben Eater. He makes just a lot of retro stuff and really the low level stuff. I can, there he's showing, he's got an oscilloscope and he's showing the RS-232 as a protocol. Kind of a lot of stuff before USB was RS-232 serial interface. I don't know what that is. Ubuntu, running a full node on Ubuntu, Ministry of Nodes, just saw that recently. Kings of Leon, Fire. Oh, that's my phone just beeping. I don't know, do you get that on a live stream? Google, piano, chill out music. Yes, Sebastian Lage, 2.7 million views. Unbelievable. Very. I can't even say he's a clever man because that would imply that I'm intelligent enough to know that he's intelligent, but he's more clever than I'm even qualified enough to comment upon. If that comes out right. He's too clever. It's not fair. Anyway, yeah, let's get on with looking at Anthony writes code. If you're interested in Python, definitely check out Anthony writes code. Really, really good. Covers everything. He just, unlike me, who has to kind of prepare stuff and copy snippets of code, he just writes it all from in his head, and he's really fast at typing. So, yeah, Anthony, very good. And oh dear, a monkey with sunglasses watching Code Monkey playback unavailable. Why is that? I think it might be a bit sweary. Yeah, so there we go. So that's my YouTube history. I'm not going to show you all my... Oh, there he is again. Code Monkey King with his cat. To be able to speak with a regional accent in a foreign language is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Mind-blowing. And yeah, right, that's enough of that. So that's you've had a sneak preview at my YouTube history. Well, not so much my history, it's more... Is it recommendations? Yeah. Right, so where were we? So a lot of you will switch off now because it's kind of gone boring and it's gone back to just a white screen with black writing. How can I make this interesting? I don't know. Well, surely if you're here for the coding, then you should find this interesting. And if I can't inspire you, then A, I'm sorry, B, I'm disappointed, and C, I'll try again in a while. What was I doing earlier? So earlier I was trying to chip away at learning. Let me just show you what I've been using for reference. So just now in my YouTube history, I showed you Anton Antonopoulos. So he's written this book, I don't know if I can, Mastering Bitcoin. So the book's called Mastering Bitcoin. I don't want to lose, can I bookmark it? I think that's bookmark 1. Let's try it. This could go horribly wrong, so let's go. I just want to show you the cover. You've probably seen the cover, but there we go. Mastering Bitcoin by Andreas M. Antonopoulos. Really good teacher. He did some videos, really old school. He just used a marker pen and a whiteboard explaining the stack. So the stack is something that gets used by Bitcoin script language. And the reason it uses a stack is because it's quite minimalist, and that's deliberate, so that you can't kind of write any nasty codes that would potentially, break the blockchain. So this is where I was. Apologies if this writing is a bit small. I'm not going to stay on this too long. In a second. Yeah, here we go. Using Bitcoin Core's programmatic interface. Bitcoin Core's API is a JSON RPC interface. RPC stands for Remote Procedure Call. Using curl there to check for stuff. Here we go. Running getinfo via running getinfo via Bitcoin Core's JSON RPC API. And what he's doing there is from Bitcoin. So if you saw my previous video, and I'm going to show you in a minute, Bitcoin, you can install Bitcoin as a Python module. It's just the name of a module which you can use in Python. It's a wrapper, so it's nothing official. It's nothing related to the Bitcoin project. It's just a module which has the same name. I hope that makes sense. What it does though is you create a connection to your local Bitcoin core node. So if you've seen my about 3 videos ago, I created a Bitcoin full node on my Raspberry Pi, and what you're doing there is you're creating a connection, then you're getting some info off it, and then you're printing the value of the block's key. And yeah, so it's all in here. It's not got a page number, it's because I'm reading it in an e-reader, but yeah, chapter 3. And there's a good lot of Python code in here that you can use to query the blockchain. So if you set up a full node, you can then do these queries on your own full node. There we go. Alternative client libraries and toolkits. So the reference implementation of Bitcoin is written in C++. But also you've got all of these as well. So you've got JavaScript, Java, Python. So Python-bitcoinlib by Peter Todd. And if you come to... I've cloned this. Let me go back to the original. So I've cloned this from Peter Todd's GitHub. Or have I? I tell a lie, this is something else. This is learning Bitcoin from the command line. But Peter Todd, if you find his GitHub, you can also install good stuff to work with the blockchain. So this one, Shannona, lots and lots of scripts here, which some of these are probably getting a bit advanced for if you're like me and you're just kind of starting or not quite even at the intermediate stage. So Bitcoin developer, developer.bitcoin.org, and this is good sort of reference. You come in here and then you've got RPC let me just zoom in on that a bit as well. You've got RPC API reference. And all of these are all the commands that you can run from the command line if you've got a full node set up. So a full node basically can be a Raspberry Pi, and it downloads a copy of every transaction, every Bitcoin transaction ever, going back to 2009. And you can run all of these commands. So there's a lot of get commands, mining, network, transactions. So everything on a blockchain really is a result of a transaction. If there were no transactions, then you would be still on block 0. And you get new blocks added every 10 minutes. So I'm going to show you some code in a minute, so hang in there. In fact, I'm going to turn the camera back on because your mind's probably wandering and thinking, oh, he's just going to show this web page again, and I've seen it already. So I think I'll just show you all these. So transactions and scripting. So going back to what I was saying about the scripting, unit 7. For me, I find this is probably the most interesting section. Probably because it's a script language and it's new to me. So when things are new, they're often, they're more interesting, aren't they? And that's why I'm liking all of this Bitcoin programming stuff, because it's new. When you've done the same old thing, like I don't know, Scrapey or whatever, you've done it hundreds of times, it's not so interesting. And I guess there's still a buzz around Bitcoin, even though it goes up and it goes down, and there's lots of people saying it's going to 0. And personally, I don't think it is or ever will, but who knows? I personally think the fiat money system, the US dollar and the British pound, will go to 0 first. Alice and Bob, UTXO, unlocking script written in scripting language. Bitcoin transaction validation is not based on a static pattern, but instead is achieved through the execution of a scripting language. This language allows for a nearly infinite variety of conditions to be expressed. This is how Bitcoin gets the power of programmable money. No. If you've read or heard about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, programmable money for Bitcoin is a good thing because it's decentralized and effectively it's one huge... Everybody's got an equal vote. Anyone who runs you or I can download the software and run our own full node. I run a full node. There's 15,000 people in the world who run a full node. If Bitcoin tried to do something, if the Bitcoin developers tried to do something controversial, not many people would download the new software, and then their changes would never get adopted. Whereas with the government, in the UK, our ruling party have a majority, so really it would only take 360 people to vote in favour of doing something quite naughty with central bank digital currency, and then you can put an expiry date on money, you can lock money, you could say, oh, this money can't be spent for 2 years, or this money can only be spent at a certain place. CBDC, central bank digital currency. If you've not heard of them, read up on them, keep an ear out for them, because they are not good at all. They are kind of a copycat of Bitcoin, but they are centralized. When you centralize something, it centralizes the power. When you centralize the power, that's when things start going bad. The whole purpose of tax was to fund wars. Why were the wars funded? Because the king or queen wanted a war. So one person wants a war, we all suffer. We all suffer in terms of blood and money. So that's the end of today's lecture anyway. So without further ado, I've shown you the book, and let's fire up. I'm going to open up VS Code. What I want to show you is what I've done so far, which may not be very impressive, but if you're interested, then so much the better. If you're not interested, I won't be offended, but if you are interested, then I'm happy about this. So, okay, while I'm talking, it's asking me for my login. So if you're running VS Code and you're trying to connect to a different server, what you do is you come down to the bottom left, which is where I've got it, opening remote. I've already set up a connection, but each time I try and connect, it still prompts me for the password. So I've just put in password here. And because I've been talking, I can't remember if I've actually put in the right one, but we're about to find out. And here we go. Let me just, is that better? Bigger font? Let's move me down to here. Okay, so if you can see on the terminal here, it says RAG at Raspberry Pi, and that's because I'm running VS Code on this Linux laptop, Linux Mint laptop, which I'm recording this on. But I've established a remote connection to my Raspberry Pi running on 192.168.1.9, and if I do uname -a, here we go, Linux Raspberry Pi, that's the kernel version, that's when it was compiled, GNU Linux. Let me just do df, I just want to show you something. So if you didn't see my earlier video about the full node, can you see here? So I've got dev/SDA1, and that is a SSD which I've got mounted. See the /MNT there, and the size is 938 and is used 468 gig, and it's got 423 gig available. So that has got what are we in? 13 or 14 years of the blockchain, so the Bitcoin blockchain. It ought to last another 10 years realistically, because, or just under 10 years maybe. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but it's used 468 gig effectively in 2009. Yeah, in 13 years. So I'm on the Pi. Let me just show you what's in the home directory. Bitcoin, that doesn't actually need to be there. Ignore that. So I've got downloads, which is where I downloaded my. If I go to downloads, I'll just show you. Nothing in there. Okay. Yeah. That is the version of Bitcoin that I'm running. That's where I extracted it to, and then obviously copied it into USR bin. You see how I've done the SHA-256? I downloaded the SHA-256 sums, and then I compared those against what they were supposed to be. So that's really important. If you install Bitcoin Core, you need to verify your download, because it, like man-in-the-middle attacks and phishing and fake websites and so on, you do need to verify the validity of the download of Bitcoin Core, because if you've got a snidey one, yeah, especially if you did any transactions or connected your wallet to it, you could lose all of your money, all of your Bitcoin. And yeah, this is not to be kind of taken lightly. Do validate your download. If you don't do that, there's no point even doing it. If you go to bitcoincore.org, so if you're in the UK, you do need to go to Bitcoin Core, bitcoincore.org. If you go to Bitcoin and go to the downloads, you'll get a message about the UK being blocked, but we're still on version 23 as of November 2022. So these cover all your operating systems. If you look here, yeah, there you go. Refresh expired keys using GPG key server. So you do need to read and follow, verify your download. Download verification is optional, but highly recommended. Highly recommended. If you don't do it, you are gambling, I would say. Well, not gambling, but you're not doing things properly. you can also compile from source as well. I wouldn't use the Snap store. There's a lot of old school Linux people who are not really big fans of Snap, and I think it makes things easy, but I've read a lot of negative things about Snap, and really, yeah, I'm I'm old school. I do things the old school way where possible, because to be honest, there's more documentation on doing stuff the old way, and if you're on a Raspberry Pi as well, like I was, so the Snap did run on the Pi, but if anybody's used Snap, then leave a comment, and if it's a really good way to do it, then let me know. But I'm probably not going to be going there soon. So yeah, that's what I had in downloads. So if I go back, CD, go back. Why did I install Docker? I know. I watched a video on YouTube where, might have been Ministry of Nodes, he was installing his own mempool. So mempool is basically where the transactions get sent before they get put into a block and validated by the miners, the Bitcoin miners, MINERS, not MINORS. In the UK, miners would mean children. You don't want children verifying your blocks, not unless they are good at IT. Right. You're probably wondering what all the code is on the screen. So let me just minimize that. So can I make that even bigger? If you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll have seen I've used from.env import load_env. I use that wherever. What that's doing is it's getting my username and password from a .env file. A .env file in Linux or Unix, you just do touch space .env, and then you can do Vim or Nano, and then you just edit, or whatever your favorite editor is, and then you just go in and you do variable name equals, and then so you do username equals my username. There's tutorials on that. So all I've done is I've got my username and password. I did from Bitcoin RPC auth.proxy to install that. Let me just check my notes. I've installed quite a few things to do with Bitcoin. So what was it I installed to get that working? I think I did, yeah, pip install Python bitcoinlib. Let me just put that on here for you. Pip install Python -bitcoinlib. What's going on here? We did the insert. What the? Oh, what is going on? Live stream where somebody can't even type. This is not a good live stream. In fact, that's why it's not a live stream. And it's even got what the pip install. It's I don't know if where you are you've got this problem with the energy bills, but I've turned up, well, not that I've turned off, but I haven't even turned on my heating this winter. So we're 6-7 weeks away from the shortest day, and I've not got the heating on, so cold hands and all that. Maybe if I get 100,000 views or subscribers on YouTube, I'll be really wealthy, and then I'll get a nice warm house. RPC_connection, and then you do. So once you've installed, no, that's not even showing. Yeah, once you've installed pip install Python bitcoinlib, then let me just I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll paste in that link as well. That's more useful. The Swiss Army knife of the Bitcoin protocol. Oh wow, that was only released on the 22nd of August. That is that's less than 2 months old. Amazing. The other one was from 2016. Peter Todd. There we go. Cheers to Peter. Indianness. So one of the good things about learning about Bitcoin is it forces you to learn things which you might not otherwise want to or choose to learn about. And in the end, it's in the end, that is not a pun. Rather confusingly, Bitcoin Core shows transaction and block hashes as little endian hex rather than big endian. The rest of the world uses for SHA-256. Python-bitcoinlib provides the convenience functions x and lx in Bitcoin Core to convert from big endian and little endian hex to raw bytes to accommodate this. So basically, if you know that it's back to front effectively, then you've got a function to put it the right way around. Selecting the chain to use. Oh yes, so with Bitcoin you've got a testnet, a mainnet, a signet, and a reg test. I don't know what those two do really. But the mainnet is actually the live one where effectively all the money. So it's not even money, it's a bunch of it's a load of blocks on a blockchain, and you have the key to if you've got a key you can access your transaction, or it's called UTXO, unspent transaction output. So if you make a transaction to somebody else, you actually transfer, or you give them the permission to unlock your money and then make it their own. So your money gets marked as spent, and then their money gets marked as unspent. So that's the U in UTXO is unspent. What's that saying? If you can't explain it, you don't understand it. So I'm not going to attempt to explain it. Don't panic. I do kind of understand it, but trying to say it back to somebody, yeah. I make a connection to my node. That's what it's doing, really. So RPC connection. I'm making a connect. Why is that not? Oh, because I'm on a remote. I need to set up remote debugging then, maybe. I got into the bad habit of when I'm writing code, I just use the red. I just click to the left of the line number, just kind of like a bookmark. So we connect to the nodes. That's what we're doing on line 10. I'm just shortening that variable, and then I'm calling it P. That actually matches some code in something else I found. So again, I'm being a bit like a magpie. I'm just taking bits from here, there, and everywhere. What we're doing, first off, is we're getting the block count. The block count is the number of the current block, or the number of the block on the very top of the blockchain. So if you imagine the bottom of the blockchain, the first block was down here, and then the top of the block, the most recent block is up here, so it's forever getting taller if you think of it as going up. Block hash. So what we're doing on line 18 is we are going to get the hash of the most recent block, and then we're going to use that hash to get the actual block itself, and that block contains many transactions. So it varies. Every block is different. So if we go to, let me try and find you. So if I show you in Block Explorer, if you just type in Block Explorer. And blockexplorer.com. My internet connection is not that fast, is it? Sorry about my posture, by the way. It's I'm wearing a coat underneath this jumper, and also so it makes me look really fat. And yeah, I have to slouch down here so that my head is still below the. And yeah, you don't get that on. Anyway, blockchain, recent transactions. Is this all Bitcoin? Oh, I don't. Is this just Bitcoin? Let's try this one. I don't really use these. I'm more interested in. Okay, here we go. Oh, this has got all the other coins as well. Don't like them. So Bitcoin up 14%. That's because it collapsed yesterday because of some bank fraud man. So there we go. Latest transactions. We want the latest block. Yeah, here we go. So there were approximately every 10 minutes. You see the little pickaxe because they've been. That means they've been mined. A bit like you would mine gold in the old days, I guess. So, oh, and it's got the name of the miner as well. So, the miner, but also says pool. So, AMP pool is a pool of miners because if you try to mine it by yourself, you might only mine one every year or two. So, it's better to all chip in together and then just share the profits. It's kind of a bit. It evens the earnings. 805, 822. So that's a big gap. 12. That's 17 minutes. And then we had 27 minutes. And then we had 8 minutes. I'm not sure. I thought they were a bit more consistent than that, but maybe wrong. What's that number? 6. That'd be. Is that 6 billion sent today? Hash rate. Blocks. Yeah, so 762,627. So when I run my code, in fact, let me just run it because you're probably going to get bored and start leaving bad comments about how this channel used to be good and now it's just talking about Bitcoin and nonsense. Python r.py. Do you notice also, you may or may not have noticed, there's no little play button up here. It's because I'm running this remotely on over SSH, so I'm not doing this on my local machine. So let's run it. And there we go. And if you remember the block number, 762,627. I'll show you the code for this in a second. I just thought I'd run it first just to kind of get you all excited. Block count. So the block count is how many blocks in the blockchain. Block is the number of the most recent block, so that number should always pretty much match that. The block hash, so that's the hash of the number of the most recent block. Merkle root. Merkle is. If you want to learn what Merkle means, look up Merkle tree. Merkle tree is a hash of some other hashes, and it's like it branches off into 2, so then you've got 2 more, and then those 2 branch off into 2 more, and all those hashes, it's a hash of some more hashes. That's a really bad explanation, but look up Merkle tree. So Merkle roots, Merkle tree. Block size. The block size varies with every block, and I don't know the difference between the block size and the block weight, so that's hold my hands up there. Nonce, that's a number used only once. So if you're familiar with English, nonce actually has got another meaning, which is not a very pleasant meaning. But yeah, nonce in computing means number once. Difficulty is to do with the difficulty of the problem which the Bitcoin miners solve, and that gets adjusted every 2 weeks, and that's part of the code. The code basically adjusts itself. Or no, it doesn't adjust itself, but the difficulty adjustment is a product of the actual underlying code written in C++. Number of transactions. So yeah, the number of transactions varies on each block. And yeah, so we've got 3, 4, 6, 7. And what this code does is it just prints off the first, it goes down to 9, but you got 0 there. So the first 10 transactions. And so all of this here is hex. So let's just go back to the actual code. Again, I've not written all this. I've cobbled it together. So I know more than nothing, but I don't know lots. So if you let's just look at this from a Python point of view, because the channel's a Python channel, and you might well be here just wanting to be nosy about how Python works with Bitcoin. And Python doesn't work with Bitcoin as such. Python is nothing to do with Bitcoin. Python is a tool which you can use to interrogate the blockchain with. Let's just say that. So to actively participate in the blockchain, you would need to. You could do some things. You can create the hashes. You could create the public and private keys. What you would also need to do, though, would be to write the signing scripts. So the locking script and the locking and the unlocking scripts, and those are the scripts which I mentioned the other day, which are they use Bitcoin script, which is Bitcoin's own kind of scripting language, but loosely based on Forth, and that uses opdupe, op hash 160, op equal verify, and op checksum. There's about 4 main op codes that it uses. Anyway, let's look at the Python. That's probably might be what you're here for. Other than maybe you think, oh, let's just humor him and just watch it. Well, I'll watch it on. I'll just turn the brightness down and turn the sound down, and just it'd be good to go to sleep too. Probably thinking, well, this is just so boring. What's the point? But let's get to it. So we've got an if, and then we've got an else, and then we've got here. I was looking for a for loop. So ITXS, so doing ITXS 10. Yeah, so down here is where all the action is really. So we're just printing the transactions IT underscore TXS. So the block. Let's start at the top. So NTX is actually a key. It's a key in the block. I didn't know that. So anyway, what that's saying is, if there's more than 10, transactions, then we'll get all 10. So here from the block, so the block is as many transactions that were. So if you could think of a block as like a bucket, so they've just chucked in a load of transactions into that bucket. However many it was. How many was it? Yeah, 3, 4, 6, 7. So the block size varies. A transaction, which is basically if Alice sends some money to Bob, that's a transaction. A block is a big bucket of transactions. A transaction is typically, let me remember, 258 bytes, I think. Bitcoin transaction, I think it's 258. Don't quote me on it yet. Bitcoin average. There we go. Bitcoin transaction byte size. It can vary. You can do different things. You can do multi-sig and so on. Some of the transactions get charged per byte. 371. So you've got okay, that's 258. There we go. not just some crazy geezer who talks rubbish on YouTube. You can find a formula here. In the simplest case, you'll have one input and two outputs, the recipient and the change. So Alice sends some money to Bob, then Bob, so that's one transaction. Now, how does that work? In the simplest case, you'll have one input, two outputs. The recipient and the change. So Alice sends some money to Bob. That's one transaction. So one in. Oh yeah. So it goes into the blockchain, and then so Alice sends some money into the blockchain, and then the blockchain then sends some change back to Alice, and some money to Bob. So that's 3. So 1 in, 2 out. According to the link formula, transaction size will be about 180. So that's your input. Plus 2 times 34 plus 10. It doesn't matter too much, does it? But that's, if you ever get that in like a pub quiz, what's the typical size of a transaction? 258 bytes, which is nothing, is it really? 258 bytes is nothing. Okay, so Merkle root, we've talked about that. The size, that's the block size. So that's how many transactions are in the block. The block weight, is that probably, what is the block weight? Is that the number of transactions times their size? Bitcoin block weight. And that's, there we go. Weight units are a measurement used to compare the size of different Bitcoin transactions to each other in proportion to the blah, blah, blah. If any of you are into networking, just so much of this looks like IPv4 headers, doesn't it? And, IPv6 even. Wow. So that's a detailed example of a transaction. So version 1, some of these are optional. I digress, because what was I looking for? I was looking for what the weight means. Weight units are also Weight units are a measurement and used to compare the size of different Bitcoin transactions to each other in proportion So the consensus enforced maximum block size limit. Weight units are also used to measure the size of other blockchain data, such as block headers. If someone can explain that to me, I would be grateful. Too much writing. Where were we? Nonce difficulty, number of transactions, list TX heading. That is just a heading. Let me just run that again. So just to prove that it's live, we had 762.627. Let's see if another block's been added. 762.631. So we went from 27 up to... I'm confused. I don't think that website is real time. We've gone from 2627 to 631. That's 4 blocks in the time we've been talking, which is probably only, don't know, 5 or 6 minutes. Yeah, that's about it, I think, for the live stream. I'm starting to run out of things to say and show, really. But if you need to set up a full node, there's lots of instructions. But really, do go to Bitcoin Core, especially if you're in the UK, because if you just go to bitcoin.org, you'll get a message saying, so this is Bitcoin Core. If we go to bitcoin.org, we'd go to where's downloads? Resources, Bitcoin Core, and then you try and download Bitcoin Core from here. You get this message if you're in the UK. The software is presently not available for download in the UK, and download links will not work if you are located within the UK, which is really dumb because you just go to Bitcoin Core, just go to a different website and you can. So it's not even as if the software's not available. You can just... And if you'd just gone to Bitcoin Core in the first place and you hadn't come here, you wouldn't even know about this message. So this message is just bullshit. Source code. You can get the source code and compile it. I suppose that doing it that way, you actually do know that your code is genuine as well, unless somebody had faked GitHub. Yeah, maybe maybe somebody would put up a fake GitHub with this code on it, and then you download it, and then you get the wrong version. Yeah, I think it's still good to verify. Verify, don't trust is one of the key mantras of Bitcoin. There was one last thing that I was going to talk about. Yes, I covered Bitcoin developer website. Sailor, I've told you about and I've shown in a previous video. EMV files, Bitcoin RPC. So, yeah, I was getting an issue earlier with, is it here? It was giving me a message about cookies, basically. And if you get a message about cookies when you're running Bitcoin full node, the cookie or cookies problem is probably because you've not set up your bitcoin.conf file, which I had a problem with it because when I set it up, I rightly or wrongly, let's go cd mnt bitcoin ls/la, and you've got my .env file there. But when I set up, actually, what directory is this? And that's my home directory. That's cd mnt. Sorry, it's getting late in the day. I shouldn't be doing a not live stream. My brain is going. Yeah, there we go. So ignore that. That was a typo. It should say test wallet. Bitcoin.conf. I can't open it because I'll show you some of my passwords and secrets. But as you can see, I've got my bitcoin.conf file actually stored on my hard drive, my SSD, which I don't think that's the correct way to do it. I think I should have it actually on my hard drive. So at the moment, what I did was I went in and copied this file from my SSD, and then I just put it into user or my home directory, and then Bitcoin, and then bitcoin.conf as per the Stack Overflow suggestion. And basically, if you are getting that problem, RPC cookie authentication, just go and check that you do have, is it that one or is it the other message? Yeah. Just check your, scroll up. Oh, that was like Python. Just if you get the RPC error, check anything to do with cookies, and then just check that you do have a bitcoin.conf file in the correct place. When I say the correct place, that could vary whether you're on a Mac, Windows, Linux. So yeah, just double check your bitcoin.conf file. If you've got any problems at all with running Bitcoin Core on a full node, bitcoin.conf file is probably where your problem is, or where you will need to fix it. So yeah. If you want to learn anything about Bitcoin, there's also Bitcoin Magazine, but that's more kind of stories about, money, business, finance, companies launching new kind of ventures to do with Bitcoin, and it's interesting. You've got mining there. I think Bitcoin mining's probably not quite so lucrative as it was, because every time, so a miner validates transaction, and in Anton's book, he describes mining as, let's get a mining or minging, mining. There we go. Bitcoin is a distributed peer-to-peer system. As such, there is no central server or point of control. Bitcoin are created through a process called mining, which involves competing to find solutions to a mathematical problem while processing Bitcoin transactions. Any participant in the Bitcoin network, i.e. anyone using a device running the full Bitcoin protocol stack, may operate as a miner using their computer's processing power to verify and record transactions. This was written quite a while ago. I mean, obviously, miners use bespoke, very amazingly fast ASICs now. So every 10 minutes on average, someone is able to validate the transactions of the past 10 minutes. Yes, every 10 minutes on average. Essentially, Bitcoin mining decentralizes the currency issuance and clearing functions of a central bank and replaces the need for any central bank. Yeah, so let's just find the next one. I shouldn't show too much of this book because I'm probably contravening all sorts of copyright acts. But in fact, this book is on GitHub. So each chapter is, I'm pretty sure it's on GitHub. So there's so much free stuff these days. If you really are motivated to learn something these days, there is so much free stuff. Early release draft GitHub. Let me try and find it. Here you go. Early release draft. Oh, that's just a hyperlink within the same document. Let's have a look at Anton's. Ah, here we go. Open edition. Here we go. So you don't even have to buy the book. It's all available online. It's what was, I thought. Learn. Where's this GitHub link? That's amazing how many different languages it's in. I've actually ordered the book anyway, but that doesn't help you, does it? There he is, Andreas. So you might recognize him if you look at anything on YouTube to do with Bitcoin in a technical way. You hopefully will see Anton. I thought the book, maybe it was just an early edition that was made available for people to review. But yeah, there's so much on GitHub as well. So Bitcoin, that's the core. That's the core software if you want to run a node. Yeah, this was the one that I started off showing you, wasn't it? So on here, you've got setting up a Bitcoin core. I don't know what that is going to show us. I think that might be a README. Yeah. Oh, creating a Bitcoin core VPS. So yeah, in one of my videos last week or the week before, I showed Bitcoin Node Explorer shows the you can download it or look at the JSON via the API, which shows all of the nodes which were currently running, all 15,000 of them around the world. And there were quite a few. I think if you saw that, you would have seen some with Hetzner, some with Google Cloud, some with Amazon. So you can actually run a full node, a Bitcoin full node on a VPS, which is good for if you're, if you haven't got stable power or a good internet connection. If you've got access to a VPS server. So yeah, there's so much good stuff here. So let's just go back up. Blockchain Commons, learning Bitcoin from the command line. You can fork it, and then you've got your own kind of copy locally. Well, not locally, but within your account, your Bitcoin account. So down here is what I'm looking at more at the moment, introducing Bitcoin scripts, testing Bitcoin script. So that's not actually to do with Python. So that may or may not be of interest. I apologize if it's not. I won't dwell on this forever, so you don't need to unsubscribe. Well, you can if you want, but so yeah, we've got the opcodes. So the opcodes are basically so the stack is like the most similar thing to the stack is really the Python list. So with the Python list, you can pop a list, pop the last item on a list with Python, or you can pop anything in the list, but typically pop will take the last thing off. So if you imagine a stack, putting one thing on top of the other, and then when you pop just takes the last thing off. And then if you pop it again, it takes that one off, and then it takes that one off. You keep popping off. This is called reverse Polish notation. So what you do is you type 1, then you type 2, and then you do op add, and that's going to add 1 and 2, and then you'll get your result, which is 3. There we go. 1, 2, op add, then the stack updates and just leaves you with 3. So build up complexity, 3, 2, op add, 4. So 3 and 2, add those together, so you've got 5. And then you say 4, so you've got 5, and you've got 4 on the stack. And op sub says subtract. It's 5, 4, op sub. I would have thought 3, 2, op add. So that gives you 5. 4, op sub stack 1. I'm going to try this. I think if let's hopefully you saw in one of my other videos. Let's try and find it. It was Bitcoin script language IDE. I've got all these bookmarked somewhere, but if I find, this is a good site. I'm getting distracted now. I will come back to the IDE thing, I promise. Learn Me a Bitcoin by Greg Walker. He's done some videos, maybe 5 years ago or so, but everything is so well explained. And yeah, this shows the stack click. So this, I'm just showing like adding 1 and 2, but this is where it actually ultimately leads. You have opcodes can pop elements off a stack, do something with them, then optionally push new elements onto the stack. So I don't know what the mnemonics are. Oh, you got signature. So this actually really is the full-on proper production kind of usage. Script is very basic programming languages. It consists of 2 types of things. Data. So you basically like a variable and an operand almost. So you've got your signature. So your signature is, going back to my other videos, we were creating first off, you create a random private key. From your random private key, you create a public key. So the 2 go together as a pair. From your public key, that then gets hashed with a SHA-256 hash, and then that in itself gets wrapped up via a ripe MD 160, which basically looks like hashing it again. That's your hash 160. So you've got private key, public key, private key, public key, and then with the public key you do the 2 hashes, and then you end up with a Bitcoin address. So you've got 3 things there. And the signature is created with the transaction, which a transaction or part of the transaction, and your private key go together to sign, and that creates the signature. So you then have a signature, which effectively contains part of the transaction and the private key. You've got the public key. Sorry, you've got the public key and the signature. Dupe, so that basically duplicates what's on the stack. I'm not explaining this very well, but if you watch this and follow this, you'll see. So you've got the signature going onto the stack, the key going onto the stack. You duplicate, so then what was on the top of the stack gets duplicated, so you end up with 2 keys. The dupe opcode duplicates the top element on the stack, and then you use I need to wait for it to go back to the start. This is like an animated GIF. So hash 160 basically is hashing, and then you do equal verify to check that the hash. I need to come back and watch this. I'm not explaining it very well, but this is a really good site, and the animations will ultimately help you learn all of this stuff. So these are the opcodes you need to worry about: dupe, hash 160, equal verify, check sig. Why do we use script? It's actually called Turing incomplete, and that's actually deliberate because it's not capable of doing anything too complicated, which is deliberate because you don't want an infinite loop or anything crazy going on. Explorer. 762, 633. We were on 63. What were we on when I ran my code just now? 631. So we've had 2 more blocks. TikTok, next block. Yeah, just thought I'd show you this site. So I was just going to cover that IDE, but I think that's probably, that animation's far better than anything I can demonstrate. So yeah, learn me a Bitcoin. I don't know if Greg updates this regularly, but to be honest, the core concepts are so kind of good and well explained. I think this is more than enough to be getting going with. The scripts, there's 5 different types. The most common one now, I think, is pay to public key hash. Pay to pub key hash. That's the one we just saw. Again, this explains it brilliantly. So yeah, don't watch my videos. Just come here, learnmeabitcoin.com. I think that's enough. Hopefully you've found something interesting from this video. And if it's helped you get to sleep, then that's even better. So when you wake up in the morning, if you could just give it a thumbs up for, you know, the sedative benefit of a Python 360 video cannot be underestimated. And yeah, I'll be back soon with probably a normal video. So hopefully you've liked this not live stream. I certainly have, and I've learned a lot. I probably should have learned it before I made the video, but hey. I think if you prepare too much, what's the saying? Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And there's somebody else who said, was it Edison? He said, I've not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways for it to not succeed. So there we go. Sailor.org, Andreas Antonopoulos, learnmeabitcoin.com, and yeah, Bitcoin script, blockchain commons /learning Bitcoin from the command line. And I think the beauty of Bitcoin is there's so many interesting things all included in it. It can only help your knowledge of computer science, and whether you feel the benefit from it right now, it will hopefully inspire you. It will help you know things in the future which you would not even. There's a saying, isn't it? You don't know what you don't know. And also there is something called, to be honest, it's quite humbling looking at all the Bitcoin code, because you think, actually, I don't know anything. I need to try harder. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias whereby people with low ability, expertise, or experience regarding... Here we go. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias whereby people with low ability, expertise, or experience regarding a certain type of task or area of knowledge tend to overestimate their ability or knowledge. I think if you learn about Bitcoin, it can only give you more knowledge. And also it just gets rid of that bias, because you think, actually, I don't know anything. But some ways that's good, because it'll either demotivate you and you'll go off and just go and work in a bar. Not that there's anything wrong with working in a bar, but it might make you think, wow, there's so much to learn, I need to get on with it and stop making silly videos. And not silly videos. This is an educational video, so hopefully you've learned something. Why do we have a P2PKH as well as a P2PK? Only Satoshi knows why we started using P2PKH, but the reason probably goes something like this. Satoshi wanted an easier way for people to be able to share their public keys with each other. Satoshi knew that you could make public keys safer by adding a checksum to detect errors, shorter by converting the public key to base 58. So if you've learned nothing from this video, you've now learned about base 58. So I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. If you don't want to subscribe, don't want a thumbs up, I don't care. It's just have a nice time. Be nice to each other.